I really think we're at the point now where this Elon-Trump fallout has blown over, mostly. If you look at the events that happened on X, sort of the things that have been said that haven't been said, you had Elon and Trump both deleting quite a few of the messages they had going back and forth, most notably the one that Elon put out there about Trump being on the Epstein list. You also have seen very restrained rhetoric from Trump, which is very strange, I'll be honest. Usually when Trump, in previous situations, when he gets attacked, let's say, especially at the scale and scope that Elon did, literally blasting out to the entire world, literally, that Trump was, on the Epstein list and assuming a lot of things from that. You would think Trump would go absolutely scorched earth if it was anybody else. But the opposite happened. Trump showed the most restraint and grace that I've ever seen him take within the context of Trump, right? And then you also have two other things that happen alongside that I think gives credence to this thing that both parties are trying to sort of move forward from this thing happening. The first is, if you're following all the stuff that's happening in LA with the riots and stuff, which are very unfortunate, Trump made a post asking for Karen Bass and Governor Newsom, or Newscum, as he likes to call him, to apologize to the people. He's calling for an apology. He's not calling for an apology from Elon. Weird. Very, very strange. And then on top of that, you have the guys at the All In podcast. Very disappointed by this, by the way, for the people that watch the All In. Huge fan of the podcast, obviously. This giant thing happened. They all have ties to this thing in some way. The All In podcast has made its mark on the world by being one of the very few places where you can go and sort of listen to very powerful people have very candid conversations about how the world operates and how they view the world, right? Sort of this billionaire bad thing that people get fed all the time. That podcast was like the perfect lens into like, yo, these guys are just trying to make the world a better place in the way that they think, how they're candid about their failures, they're honest about their approaches, etc., etc. And then at the moment that we needed the most, sort of like from our perspective, the tech bro drama corner, gone. They're nowhere to be found. As a viewer, I'm very disappointed. I still hope that this week they come out and they sort of candidly talk about all the things that went down and sort of what this means. What are the forces at play? What are the long-term implications? These are all very valuable insights, especially from people that are very close to the story. And you can be very sensitive, obviously, about your approach. But the fact that they didn't say anything, let me try to get to my point. The reason why they didn't say anything, it's because they're obviously trying for this thing to just blow over. There's no other reason why you wouldn't mention, like, you just don't drop it. Like, other things happened, y'all. Like, this is not the only thing that happened. Obviously, it's the thing that took up all the attention. But it's not the only thing that happened in the world of business, technology, artificial intelligence, VC, investing, right? Business, culture. These guys follow that. But the Trump-Elon thing happens, they go silent. Huge bummer. But again, it implies that the parties involved are just waiting for this thing to just blow over. And so within that context, we can make a lot of assumptions. Number one, it's become clear to me that if there was going to be any retaliatory thing from the Trump administration, now that could still happen. I want to be very clear, that could still happen. But any short-term to medium-term things, I do think these two parties have sort of separated, quote-unquote, amicably, given everything that transpired. Elon felt snubbed that Jared Isaacman was not made the NASA head, which I 1000% understand that sentiment. He feels that Congress and the Republicans are not doing nearly enough in Congress to cut the deficit, cut spending. Completely understand, and I'm fully on board with that. But on the other side, you just can't make such an emotional post and direct it to the leader of the free world and then delete it. You can't do that. That's crazy. So given all that, they've moved on to a more neutral space. Within that context, the two wins that I think Elon has gotten from this entire relationship as it pertains to his businesses is that it does seem like the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, I think that's what it stands for, the air people, I call them the air people, planes, rockets, and stuff like that. He's gotten a lot of clearance to be able to do the SpaceX launches, the Starship launches at a much higher cadence. I don't think he would have been able to do it with the Democrat Party in power. With the Republican Party, he was able to get clearance from that. So that dramatically accelerates his ability to go to Mars, right? Or to get some sort of missions going to Mars. So that's a huge win. The other win is on the Secretary of Transportation side, where Secretary Duffy, I believe is his name, he is now showcasing self-driving technology, using Tesla as the premier company to try and push that technology. As you know, he went to the Tesla factory, he was next to the humanoid robot, he was next to the Model Ys and stuff. He was talking about why self-driving technology is so important. So that's another huge win. That helps Tesla specifically from a scaling perspective. And so now that we are where we are, and sort of reading the tea leaves, it seems like those things are still going to happen, and they should happen because it puts the United States in a much better position to compete against China specifically. So that's a no-brainer. And it sort of like backs up the claim that Elon, as dumb as he can be, let's be completely honest, he is a gigantic asset to the United States, and he should be supported, and people should still approach the individual with nuance. I think that's very important. The other thing that has come out of this, I think Elon has reached a final boss that he can't beat, which is the swamp, the government, right? He literally got a black eye from it. There's all these, reports of, was it this kid that punched him in the face? Was it Scott Besant? Was it somebody else? Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I think the imagery, the poetic nature of that, as much as it sucks to see somebody get hurt, I think speaks volumes, right? His exit from the government ended with him having a literal black eye. So, and what that tells me is that I believe it like sort of harkens back to like his time at PayPal. And if you read that story about how he was sort of like ousted because the people at the time just could not handle Elon and who he is as a person and how he operates. He was just way too abrasive, way too existential, way too cold-blooded and hardcore. And I think it was a giant culture clash. And so all his now buddies, right, like Sachs and Thiel and all these guys, they cooped him out, and he ended up starting, Tesla, SpaceX, etc., because he was put in a position where he just couldn't do what he wanted to do. So I think the same exact thing happened with government, with Doge. Unfortunate. I mean, it sucks. Like, I had much higher hopes for Doge and all that stuff, but there's a limit that was hit. And I made a post about this on X. An open letter to Elon Musk titled it, and I sort of just walked through how I viewed the story, how I viewed Elon Musk, and all the positives, really just focusing on the positivity. And I think right now is no better time than for Elon to sort of recapture that energy of positivity. Recapture the energy of these are the good things that are happening in the world, I'm very glad that he did what he did with Doge personally. Like, as a US citizen, I'm extremely glad that we got the most powerful asset we have from a business perspective, entrepreneur perspective, problem-solving perspective, technology perspective, one of the greatest ones that we have out there. And we unleashed them. We said, okay, go figure shit out. It just so happens that the US government, probably by design, in a lot of ways, has a antibody response to somebody that's maybe trying to create too much change too fast. And if you follow Elon closely, we all know that that's how he operates. I had firsthand experience while I worked at Tesla. I never worked directly with Elon, but I saw the culture. It's about as existential as it can get in a company, where you always feel like if you're not going as fast as possible, you are losing. Like, you're losing against the clock, you're losing against time, you're losing against blah. And I think a lot of his frustrations that we saw last week are related to that existential nature. I think perhaps he's come to a realization, and I think we've all sort of learned a lesson, which is even someone as capable and powerful as Elon cannot defeat governments as a participant in efficiency. It seems like an impossible mission. Even when he donates $300 million to get Trump elected, even when he is surrounded by what I estimate to be a pretty strong cabinet, there are some weak links in there for sure, but it feels like a pretty capable cabinet to me. I could be wrong. Trump, for as many flaws as he has, and I'm quite unhappy with some of the decisions he's made as of late, happy with others, he still seems to be a very capable leader from my perspective. I think a lot of the existential rhetoric around him, it's just stupid. He's an entrepreneur, seems capable of making high-level decisions. He has a very unorthodox approach to figuring out where he can make those decisions, and I think a lot of the tariff stuff is part of that approach, where it's like, in the same way that Elon likes to delete everything and then put stuff back that's missing, I view Trump in the same exact manner, where he just likes to create chaos and then uses leverage to get a better position against those that are not able to handle the chaos properly. And creating chaos is a way of highlighting weakness. that's his sort of overarching approach. I think a lot of people view that as unethical and as messed up and sort of like asshole-ish and rude and backstabby, and I totally get it. But that's how he operates. And so the question becomes, is it good for the United States to have somebody at the helm that ultimately is trying to get a better deal for America? Of course it is, obviously. Can the approach be left more to be desired? Obviously. Is it fair to say that when you're the president of the United States, you probably have to get dirty because other countries don't have your best interests in mind? Your Russias and your Chinas and your Irans and other folks that are not, let's say, buying into this Western approach, of course. So, you know what I'm saying? Like this, it's nuanced. Like this thing is very new. It's complex. It's nuanced. There's a lot of layers, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So, from that perspective, I think Elon has realized, or I hope he has realized, and him replying to that post, I think, at the very least, he's thinking about it, is that I think there's now a refocus that's going to happen with Elon Musk, the individual, where perhaps he has realized that the direction he has taken for the last 2-3 years started with the purchase of X and sort of ended with this black eye, this chapter. Actually, it ended with the Epstein post. It ended with the Epstein post. That chapter has come to a close, and now sort of this like arc between the Epstein post and going to Mars, I think it's going to be hugely benefited by Elon re-engaging and re-embracing that positive attitude that the future is going to be good. Let's focus on the things that are important. Let's focus on the things that can make a huge difference to life, like huge difference through technology. Let's be inspirational, right? Instead of, again, I agree, instead of like being very existential about how bad society's trending, I completely agree with that. You've done everything you can. I think it goes without saying, you being Elon Musk, you've done everything you can. Your supporters are going to be very thankful and grateful for your efforts. Your detractors are probably doing a giant victory lap, you know, like, we've defeated Elon Musk, you know, get back to work kind of thing, you know, go back from whence you came, which is technology, right? I do think Elon has made a positive impact on government. I think he's highlighted the deficit problem hugely, something people don't talk about. And unfortunately, this Epstein thing removed the attention from the problem, which is the freaking deficit. And Congress is not doing enough to fix it. They're not doing enough, right? They are $150 billion a year. Okay, cool. So now we're going from a $2 trillion deficit to a $1.9 trillion deficit, or 1.8. Wow, great job. Well, there's more tax income coming. Okay, let's see it. Let's see if that's the case or not. But there's not enough happening from an expense perspective where I feel confident that, let's say, the AI stuff doesn't come to fruition as fast as we hope, or the tax revenue perspective doesn't come as fast as we hope. We're just going to continue this path of just borrowing from the future generation to enrich the current generation. And then if things don't pan out the way we hope they pan out, then the future generation, i.e. my kids, my child and their kids, they're deal with it. That's not right. That's not how a country should operate, right? So highlighting all of that has been extremely valuable, bringing it to the public eye. The approach has been dirty and nasty, unfortunately. It has turned out to be dirty and nasty, but I fully support the mission. But the chapter is closed, right? Now, you know, I'm not saying that Trump and Elon are not going to work together. I think they will work together where beneficial. I think it behooves both of them to work together where beneficial. Elon should work together with every political party to benefit, to really try and position the United States in a stronger place regardless of party. Maybe he should start thinking about funding third-party candidates to try and break this sort of two-party system that optimizes, like I've talked about in my previous videos, like optimizes for the worst case scenario. You know, it's like there are ways to still stay engaged with the country, which all of us should do, right? As citizens, we all should do that. Like we shouldn't like expect people of Elon's position or whatever to not be involved in politics. If anything, they're going to be way more involved in it because a significant percentage of their net worth, i.e. dollars that they generate, are going to the government. So from that perspective, I totally get it. I've become more politically engaged. The more I have to pay the government, the more I become politically engaged because I'm like, what are y'all doing with my money? I made it. You know, it's my money that I have to give to the government so that y'all can go, you know, protect the borders and make sure the country doesn't collapse and give us clean water, clean air, roads, etc., etc. That's why it's important to be engaged. But anyway, I don't even know if this video is making any sense. I feel like this is just a big old rant right now, but sometimes it's healthy for me to just dump my brain. Anyway, and I hope it's valuable for y'all too. What I'm trying to get to is that I think we're about to enter a phase with Elon where there's going to be a massive re-engagement into his companies, a massive re-engagement into positive missions, positive outcomes. My hope, let me see, it's my hope and my subtle prediction, 51-49, right? 51% this happens, is that we're going to start seeing that like old Elon vibe, that like, let's inspire the middle 80%. Let's get them like, holy shit, that's impressive. Wow, that's sick. Oh my God, like I can't believe you did that. The rocket came back, that's crazy. The car driving itself, that's crazy. Dude, he went to Mars with the bots, that's crazy. Holy shit, this robot just like built a house with 10 other robots in like a day. That's crazy. Crazy, right? I don't know if that's even possible, but you know what I'm saying, right? Inspire through positive change. That's Elon's greatest strength, in my opinion. It's inspiring by creating real world positive change with real products and real services that are so mind-blowingly good that you can't help but just sit there and be like, you can't help but just respect the guy at an incredible level, because you're like, how is this even real? How come Elon's the only one that's doing it? And he's doing it through multiple verticals. He's doing this with space, with the cars, with Neuralink, with XAI, with Grok, with the Boring Company, right? Like, there's all these ventures he's in that he's impressing people every single day with technology, right? So yeah, that's what it feels like to me. I could be wrong in that respect. I'm curious to see if this pans out to be true, because if it does, this bodes really well for the company. Because even though we're not going to get the June 12th robotaxi launch, I think that's pretty August by now. They would have probably announced something by now. Like, or they might just stealthily just start running the 12 or 10 or 20 robotaxis or whatever without us knowing. And they'd be like, yo, robotaxi's live, come down, check it out. That risk of, people are, Elon's going to derail this story because he's doing some stupid shit on X, that's going to go away entirely, right? And it's not going to be like, okay, robotaxi scaled. Human and robot started impacting the bottom line. Whoa. Oh my God, the first customer, Dubai just bought 50,000 bots. Whoa, okay. Tesla now has 1,000 robots working in their factories. That's kind of crazy. Oh, Austin, LA, SF, Phoenix, Orlando, Miami, all these cities just went live with robotaxi, and the surrounding regions in those cities, the suburbs, the extended metro areas, the connecting sort of like roads between Dallas and Austin and San Antonio, et cetera, et cetera. Now all these are live and people can go from city to city with robotaxi. Nobody else can do that, right? So these are the things that become front and center without quote unquote distractions, right? And then the long-term valuation of the company begins to actually take shape and take hold. And so as long as Tesla executes on the things that they are really good at, which is making cars, making artificial intelligence, and using that manufacturing expertise and AI expertise to ramp up human or robots, as long as they do that, sounds very simple, but as long as they do that, everything's gonna be fine. If you're an investor, right? Everything's gonna be completely fine. All of this is going to be like, people are gonna forget about it. Like, they literally will forget about it because the value proposition of the product is way too strong. If you look back at other times where, let's say, brands or individuals have gotten black eyes from metaphoric black eyes, whatever, if you deliver a killer product or a killer service, people will just, they don't care. Amazon, as a perfect example, if you remember, Jeff Bezos was crucified to no end for being an evil billionaire that had sweatshop conditions at warehouses, and I'm sure he did in some of them. Not directly his fault, just poor management in those facilities. He got raked over the coals for that. Did people stop using Prime? No, of course not. Why? Because Prime is fucking amazing, right? It's amazing. People are not gonna stop using a thing if it's amazing, right? Apple, wow, did you know all phones have cobalt in them, and there's all this horrific things happening in the Congo with extracting all these rare earth minerals and cobalt, et cetera, et cetera. Literally kids ingesting fumes and super harmful things into their lungs so that we can have cell phones, right? Objectively an awful thing. Has anyone stopped buying cell phones? Okay? That's the sad reality of humanity, is that it doesn't matter how bad a story can be from like a judgment perspective. As an investor, and if you follow a company, if the products and services that company is offering to society creates a net benefit for society, people will adopt it. It's that simple. And so I think the core thesis of Tesla that has been true since its inception and will be true for the next few decades is that as long as Tesla is focusing on creating killer products and killer services that come along with those products, and it's something people can afford and people have access to, the company is completely fine, Elon's completely fine. All of this is noise, but they have to execute. And so the question becomes, has Elon become incapable of executing through all this time? And my argument to that would be that, if anything, he's probably in a better position to execute because he does have the Secretary of Transportation fully bought in on self-driving vehicles. You have the FAA fully bought in on rocket technology and allowing Starship to go as fast as they can. You have the situation with the Trump administration trying to onshore supply chain to the United States, which helps a company like Tesla tremendously, because now they can have access to minerals and materials without having to depend on places like China, which de-risks China as a potential place where Tesla is going to get yanked, right? They're going to get the rug pulled from them because China's going to be like, we don't need you anymore. It sort of reduces the risk of that happening because now China doesn't have the United States to depend on for us to buy their stuff. So from a macro perspective, from a long-term perspective, Tesla's completely fine. It's just like, will the market price that in? Will the market wait for earnings to come through? What's going to be the likelihood that they get a premium on their price earnings if robotaxi starts ramping quickly? How much of the value is the market willing to bring forward for the bot? How early are they able to do it? What does the macro situation look like with rates, with the economy? Are the tariffs going to create a recession? Are they going to create a depression? I don't think so. By the way, I think the tariff stuff's overblown. The impact from it will cause some issues, but like inflation's fine. It has been fine. If anything happens, the Fed will lower rates. I mean, that's what it comes down to. If they lower rates, money becomes cheaper, and by default, stocks go up because when you bring rates down, assets go up. You know, people will take out, easier to take out a mortgage to buy a house, easier to, go on margin. Access to capital becomes easier. People will be willing to, instead of letting it sit on a bank account, collecting 5-6% interest or whatever, or putting it in bonds and T-bills, etc., they will deploy it. They will deploy it to riskier investments because they have nowhere else to put it where they can get a guaranteed return, right? So none of this is investment or financial advice, but from my perspective, if I'm following Tesla for the next 12 months, deliveries could get ugly depending on the auto market and how soft demand looks for not just Tesla, but freaking everybody. Tesla, especially in places like Europe, but everybody's suffering. Let's be completely honest here. BYD has 270 days on hand and it just cut prices by 30%. You guys, I thought BYD was this Tesla killer and their positioning is awful. If their positioning is awful, and then you look at legacy automakers and your Ford GMs, etc., the auto market looks like a disaster. But that automatically means that the companies that are able to play in other verticals to leverage their existing manufacturing and supply chain to make money, like with energy storage, like with full self-driving, like with human or robots, solar panels, solar roofs, cheaper vehicles. Tesla's coming up with cheaper vehicles. These are the companies that will win. And just because they are part of the auto market doesn't automatically mean they're going to lose. Tesla specifically, because they know how to build leverage on what they've already built. They're not cookie cutter stuck with one part of the business with the auto. They can get into other verticals. They can get into other product lines. And that's been the thesis, the core thesis for Tesla for the long term, is that they are uniquely positioned to be able to do that, right? So anyway, that was a lot longer than I expected. I hope it was valuable. It seems like many of you enjoy these car chats, sort of these stream of consciousness, trying my best to make sense, going on 7 tangents all at once and losing the thread, as Trump would call it, doing the weave, but the weave never comes back. Neither does Trump a lot of times. But anyway, I hope it was valuable. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I love you guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.